Hi there, welcome to another episode of Literature in English. My name is Jesse Josh, and so far we've been on the analysis of Let Me Die Alone by John Kagbo, and we've come so far, we've talked about the author, we've talked about the plot, we talked about the setting, we talked about the themes, and then we went on to analyze the characters, in that advance the storyline in the play. And here we are rounding it off with the dramatic techniques, that were employed in the work of play. We're going to look at the language, we're going to look at the style, and a couple other dramatic techniques that were, infused into the play to make it, very, very viable. All right. So the first dramatic technique we're going to be looking at today is language. Kagbo makes superb use of the English language in Let Me Die Alone. The play is particularly well crafted, and the language is embedded with cultural nuances that adequately contextualize the play, especially the rich use of proverbs. So if you read the play, the actual work of play, you would see how John Kagbo was very, very creative with the use of English, right, which he, spiced up with rich use of proverbs, right? You would see a lot of proverbs in this work, how, and that helped to, spice up the language in the play. All right. The next technique we're going to be looking at is songs and dance. Songs and dance, which is a very, very common technique that is very, very common amongst African playwrights. Okay, African dramatists. They have a way of infusing songs and dance into the work of play. And John Kagbo also made use of this technique. Kagbo carefully he intersperses the different acts with song and dance and pays particular attention to sound effects. The Sunday dancers are of particular interest here as they have the wherewithal to entertain, so they also have the power to check and balance the authorities. Okay, so like I said earlier when we were talking about the characters in Sunday dancers, they were not just a social group, they were also a very, very strong political group. They had a very, very considerable amount of influence on the political affairs in Mende society, right? But they did this, right, with their songs and their dances, and Kagbo did not fail to portray the African tradition with songs and dances in the play Let Me Die Alone. All right. The next technique that we're going to be looking at is comic relief. Comic relief. In simple terms, laughter, right, and humor, right. Moments of comic relief also heighten, the overall tragic nature of the play, right. The play is a very tragic one, or has tragic elements, but then Kagbo finds a way to, infuse moments of laughter and comic relief into the work, right. We see it in the way Banyak drags Yoko to bed stimulates some pleasurable interest, right. The encounter between the guards and messenger also underscores some comic relief. The messenger has been, manhandled before the guards realize that he's a member of the very powerful Poro society. You know how it can be very funny when you're a part of a meeting and then the guards are stopping you and feeling like, oh no, we can't allow you to enter this meeting, not knowing that you're also a member. That could be very, very funny at times. You're just looking at the guard like, who is this one? I'm a member of this. Anyways, you get the point, right? The next dramatic technique that we're going to be looking at that Kagbo employed is symbols. Symbols. Now, symbols are very, very hard to spot, especially if you are not reading the book, to analyze it. If you're just reading the book to, to entertain yourself, you might find it very difficult to spot symbols. Okay, but if you're reading to analyze it, you'll be very, very careful. You're thinking, your creative, the creative part of your head begins to light up, right? So let's look at some of the symbols that, Kagbo employed in the play. In the play, we see thunder rumbling. We see thunder, in the play, thunder rumbles, Geneva, poison are key symbols deployed to advance the plot structure, right? At some significant points in the play, thunder rumbles to arrest our attention to consciousness. Geneva in the play, so we see thunder rumbling, Geneva, and poison are the major, key symbols that we see in the play. So we have talked about how the thunder rumbles at, certain parts in the play to get our attention, right? Geneva in the play represents, shattered hope and a new order denied from sprouting. So we see how Geneva was the love of everybody in the society, how she was loved, right? But then, and how she foreshadowed a new hope, a new order for, the city of, the society of Mende. But in the end, we see that new order was denied ever, coming to life. So Geneva, she represents, as a symbol, she represents, the new order that was never brought to life, okay? Poison also becomes a potent tool of ending the reign of each leader in the play. So we see that Gbanya was killed with poison, and Yoko was also killed with poison, right? So we see how poison is a repetitive symbol in the work of play, all right? So Gbanya died from poison by his trusted aides. Yoko dies from poison. For Gbanya, poison took him out in a disgraceful manner, but Yoko used poison to leave the scene with her royal esteem and integrity intact. So even though while Gbanya was poisoned, right, and gives him a very terrible form of death, Yoko takes her own poison, or Yoko poisoned herself in order to maintain her self-esteem and royalty. All right. So poison in this instance has a dual image of negative and positive ends. So we see the negative end on Gbanya's side, and we see the positive ends on Madam Yoko's side. But why does Kagbo make the two chiefs to die by poison? Probably just for dramatic creativity, right? Just for dramatic convenience, okay? So that must not have been a coincidence. He made the husband, the previous chief, to die of poison, and the wife, the next chief, to die of poison. That must have been very symbolic, okay? The last and final dramatic technique that we're going to be looking at that was employed in Let Me Die Alone is foreshadowing. Foreshadowing, right? It will be so weird if you cannot spot foreshadowing in the book Let Me Die Alone. They are scattered everywhere. All right, let's look at it. Foreshadowing is a literary device which gives an, we know what foreshadowing is. I talked about it when we're treating literary devices, or features of prose, or features of drama. I talked about it there, but let's talk about it again. Foreshadowing is a literary device in which a writer gives an advance hint, an advance idea of what is to come later in the story. Foreshadowing often appears at the beginning of a story or a chapter and helps the reader develop expectations about the coming events in a story. If you want more on foreshadowing, you have to go back to our previous videos on prose and drama. Now we have some instances of foreshadowing in Let Me Die Alone. We see that when Geneva is sent to call Lamboy and Musa for a meeting in the palace, Lamboy admires her and remarks that girls of her type stand to die in the hands of the enemies of Seneun. Right now, that statement was a foreshadowing of the fact that something bad was going to happen to Geneva. Geneva is the daughter of Jilo and Ndapi, right? So even though she was not dead yet, she was sent to call Lamboy and Musa, right? And Lamboy made a statement foreshadowing the fact that she was going to die. Okay, this statement foreshadows, like I just said, it foreshadows Geneva's abduction and gruesome death in the hands of Lamboy and Musa, who are indeed the enemies of Seneun. Similarly, Yoko has a premonition that a great evil will befall her household on a particular day. That's on page 96, right? The governor and actually the great evil actually happened because her husband died. Some paragraphs later. All right. The governor later comes to flog her husband Gbanya, right, and is eventually poisoned to death, which is what I just said. As royalty, Gbanya does not want a humiliating death, but ironically foreshadows an unpleasant death for himself. And that is that about foreshadowing, and that is that about the literary devices or the dramatic techniques that were employed in the play Let Me Die Alone. And that brings us to the end of the analysis of the play Let Me Die Alone by John Colossal Kagbo. I hope I hope you had a wonderful time. I did, and it was very, very interesting. It was good, moving from from the beginning up to this point, and I hope you enjoyed. I hope it was educative for you and informative enough for you to even use it to pass your exams. All right. So like I said, this is just an analysis. It will not suffice for reading the book. All right. But I'll see you in the next class, where we'll take up we'll start another topic on, or we'll take up another analysis of non-African drama, because we are done with African drama, which were Lion and the Jewel by Wole Soyinka and Let Me Die Alone by John Colossal Kagbo, right? But in the next class, we're going to start on the analysis of the non-African drama, okay? And then we'll take it up from there. Until then, stay safe. Bye for now.